In this video, I'm going over functions, and this is going to be part one of a two-part video just going over functions. This is going to cover built-in functions. In the next part, I'll go over making our own functions. So um, for this, I'm going to start out in here in the RCBasic manual, which if you're on the Windows version like I am right now, you can go in the RCBasic manual, the HTML file right here, that'll open up the manual. I would recommend opening it up in either Google Chrome, or I think it might work in Internet Explorer pretty well, but there seems to be some issues with the offline version and Firefox, at least that I've had. So just letting you know that now. So when we're in here, when we go into down here where we see all of our different categories, these are the different categories for our built-in functions. And we're just going to, for now, start in console IO, and we have the fprint function and the input function. The fprint function, while it still works, is kind of unnecessary because this was just basically from this was needed in an earlier version of RCBasic because the actual print command wasn't able to do everything that fprint could. But it's like kind of unnecessary now, but you can still use it if you want. And we have the input function, which we've been using already. So let's go ahead and just create our simple enter your name program that we had in a previous video. So actually, let me start with a dim user input, and then I'm going to say user input equals input, and enter your name. Right. And let me just break down real quick how this line works. The input function, if we go back to our manual, it says the input function, it has one parameter, which basically is this prompt variable right here, which it was basically we're like entering a string for prompt. So when we enter a string, prompt is replaced with that string, and that prompt is what prompts the user for the input. Now then this returns the user input from the console. Whenever you see returns inside of the manual, like referring to like the return value of the function, it's basically what the entire function call is getting replaced with. So this just going over this inside of here, this enter your name is what we're pitting in for prompt. And the prompt has to be a string, so we're manually inputting a string. But we could also, since it's expecting a string, we could create a string variable, create something called s, and we could say s equals enter your name. And then instead of pitting in the string directly, we could pit in s, and that would still work. So let's compile that, and compile it successfully, and run, and it'll ask us to enter our name, and I'll enter noob, and program ends. So this doesn't have to be a string literal like with the quotation marks. You can enter a string variable, but you could also, because these this return value, like for input for instance, the return value is a string. So when you enter noob at the prompt, it replaces this entire call with noob. So user input is just equal to noob because that's what I typed in the prompt. Right. So if we have another string function, like let's just go to our string functions, and we'll go with anything you see with a $sign next to it, it returns a string. We're going to say the replace string. Actually, replace sub str, which this, may be poorly named, but replace str basically it replaces all occurrences of this string, this TGT string, inside of the source string with this. So I think that is a good one to go over. Let's just say we have let's make another string variable called R, and we'll say R equals replace sub str, and we're going to like give it for a source string. We'll give it hello. I mean, I'm kind of sick of the hello world thing myself, so I will say something in a string, and then this is the like the second, like you're replacing like, so this was a good example because now gives us a chance to go over multiple parameters in a function call. So each parameter in a function call will be separated by a comma, and you see it in the declaration right here where you have the commas after each of the arguments. So we're putting a comma. This is going to be our source string, and that's the string that we're looking in. And then we're going to replace the letter I. So we're going to target the letter I. So we're putting I in for our target. And we're going to replace the letter I with an underscore. So put a underscore. So what we can do is, let me just go ahead and instead of getting the user input, I'm going to comment that out for now. And we're just going to print R. And it should print this string with each occurrence of the letter I, which is right here, and then right here with an underscore. And we get all occurrences of I replaced with an underscore. The reason I brought this up, and let me get back to that, is we're going to get rid of this variable. And this function call right here, we're going to put inside of here. So we can call a, like, because this function, the replace sub str, returns a string, and we're expecting a string inside of the input function for prompt, we can use this function call to and we can pass this function call as a string into input. So this is just going to have our something with all our i's replaced with an underscore as our prompt now. And this is our prompt, and we can just put, like, you know, whatever in there, and it's just going to end. But that's basically how functions work. You have functions have return types. So functions with a $sign at like at the end of their names they return a string, and then functions without the $sign, they're either going to be a function or a subroutine. And there are some cases where you have a subroutine instead of a function, which a subroutine is similar to a function, but it does not return anything. So in this case, this is a number function. It returns a number, returns the ASCII value of a character, which if you don't understand that, we will go over it in a far later tutorial. But let me look up a subroutine real quick that might be simple to call. Let's see. Think in. Alright. Stack, yeah. So this is a subroutine. It does not return anything. It just puts a number on top of our stack. So to show how that works, we could just go, I'm going to get rid of all this, and then let's just say push in 5, and then compile that. You won't see anything from this, but that just puts 5 on top of our number stack. well, the number stack we have set, which might be something I go over in a later tutorial too, but this is just for the purpose of explaining a subroutine. Now let's say we try to make a variable x equals push in. Because push in is a subroutine and it doesn't return anything, this will not compile. And it says on our error, must set number variable to number expression. So it's expecting a number expression like here to be assigned to this number variable. And so like for subroutines, we can't set a subroutine to a variable. Subroutines are basically just something designed to run on a line by themselves. And I guess real quickly, we've already, I don't think we have gone over a number function yet, but we will go over one number function, and that is a val for now. So val is a function that actually returns the numerical value inside of a string. So we're going to take a string. So we already have user input. We're going to set user input equal to input. And we're going to just ask the user to enter a number. And now we're going to try to print that user input plus 5. And this will not compile, obviously, because we have a string and we're trying to add a number to it. And as I've mentioned before, we can only add strings to strings and only add numbers to numbers. So when we try to compile this, we get a failure incompatible operands for add operation. So to fix that, we could convert this to a number using the val function, and that's going to return the value, the numerical value inside of this string. And now we can try to compile that and run that. Now let's type in 45, and then when we hit enter, it should do the value of 45, which is 45, plus 5, which will be 50. Right. But the other thing we could do is also convert, instead of converting this to a number, we can convert this to a string, which sometimes we may want to do as well. So we would do that with the str function. And the str function just expects a number variable, and we can look, just to real quick go over those. Let's go to string functions and look at str, and it expects a number variable. If it was expecting this to be a string, there would be a $sign after that n. And it returns a number converted to a string. And real quick, just to show that val, we can go to val, and you see that it's expecting a string, and it's returning the number value stored in the given string. So in this case, this function is returning a string with this value converted to a string. So it's going to take the string of what we enter plus this string with 5 stored in it, and go down here. So let's put in the 45, and it's going to take our string 45 plus the string 5, which gives us 455, because since they're both strings, you can't do math with them. It just adds them together to create a longer string. And that is it for how to use functions, and you can explore the built-in library either by alphabetical list and see an alphabetical list of all the built-in functions, or you can go through the different categories for specific functions you might need. And I also recommend, if you haven't yet, reading through the description on functions inside of the manual as well, which goes more in depth than what I have here. And I will see you in the next video.